country at the gateway to the Ozarks in Fairfield Bay, Arkansas. This is the Fairfield Bay Gadfly coming to you from the Flytrap Studio with the Fairfield Bay Gadfly Presents. Today, we will look at this day in history, uncover what is going on in the world, and reflect on how such happenings affect all of us. Now, this day in history. On April 13th, 1979, the world's longest doubles ping pong match ends after 101 hours in Sacramento, California. The dueling governments of Fairfield Bay and the Fairfield Bay Community Club concerning short-term rentals are going to set some kind of record themselves. Both entities should quit pinging and ponging over something that wasn't an issue to begin with. Sufficient laws are on the books to address any miscreants who rent short-term rentals. Now, on an international basis, it appears that Russia is not only continuing their genocidal invasion of Ukraine, but is not being overly affected by sanctions imposed by the Western world. The ruble has rebounded. The Russian central bank has lowered its interest rate. Vlad the Impaler Putin is smart enough to know that as long as the Ukrainian crisis doesn't hit the pocketbooks of the average Russian citizen, nobody really cares what happens in Ukraine. This is followed by more name-calling by Slow Joe and his assertion that the Ukrainian crisis is what is causing rising food and fuel prices in America. Seriously? Come on, Joe. We know what the real problem with America is right now, and it's you and your Democrat allies and policies. Western governments continue to have discussions and conferences with Russia and its allies over the crisis. It's time to stop negotiating with the devil. Europe doesn't have the cojones to shut off Russian oil and gas, not to mention food supplies, which results in economic support for Russia. The only way to affect Russia is in the pocketbook. All trade and economic exchanges with Russia and the Western world must be stopped, period. Now, on a national basis, what's this? Front page headlines. The inflation rate has jumped to 8.5% in March. Return with me, if you will, as we hop in the Wayback Machine and go to the Carter administration years. Those of us who can remember, and sometimes that gets a little difficult, can still see the 14% inflation rate by the end of the Carter administration. Not to mention the 15% increase in unemployment. I remember friends who purchased a home during the late 70s and were happy to get a 17% interest rate on their home loan. Folks, if we don't learn from history, then we're doomed to repeat it. It wasn't until 1982, when the Reagan tax cut bill was passed, that inflation started going down again. Think about it. Do you have a bunch of credit card debt? Are you planning to try to obtain a home loan? Will you need additional capital to ensure your business succeeds? Is there a recession in our near future? These are all important questions that each of us must ask ourselves. We need a business-friendly government that rewards success, not a tax and spend government that sucks the lifeblood out of our lives. Guess what? At this point, we're stuck with a senile leader and a communist-leaning vice president. Let's hope we make it, financially and otherwise, until the 2024 elections. On a sad note, comedian Gilbert Gottfried succumbed to a long-term illness at age 67. Gilbert, known not only for his biting comedy, was a great voice actor, and he left this world too soon. He was a person who, when his name was mentioned, you could always hear his voice. That's amazing. Now, on a state basis, springtime in Arkansas. Be sure to check on your safe space/room to avoid those nasty tornadoes and heavy rain and winds. And while you're at it, watch for high winds from the BS in Little Rock and surrounding areas as we enter the political season. Apparently, it has already been decided that Trump's pit bull will be crowned governor of the state after the Republican primary, as there isn't a Dem in the state that can match Sarah's war chest and pedigree. She appears to be a nice enough person, but I think I would prefer someone else. One solid candidate that comes to mind is conservative radio talk show host Doc Washburn. I would encourage each of you who lives in the state of Arkansas to take a look at other possibilities. The Gadfly will admit to being a Democrat justice of the peace in Jefferson County in the early to mid-70s. But after Jimmy Carter and his administration took office, I could no longer even consider voting for a Democrat. And nothing has happened since then to change that. Once again, take a closer look at Doc Washburn. Now, on a local basis, hot dog! I truly don't know how it was accomplished, but the city's run conference center has put together an incredible event for November 4th through 5th of this year. The Ozarks Moonshine and Music Festival, with featured artist Ricky Skaggs, and that boy can play a mandolin. This is big for Fairfield Bay, and Ginger Simpson and her crew should be congratulated. I've always thought that Fairfield Bay should look to the roots of this part of the state, such as how Mountain View has done. Granted, Mountain View does have the Ozark Folk Center, but Fairfield Bay should be able to attract some good musicians in our own right. But this festival is an excellent start. The Fairfield Bay City Council met on April 11th for their regular monthly meeting. After the thrilling announcement of the Ozark Moonshine and Music Festival, Mayor Duncan then put everybody to sleep by taking the opportunity to explain once more the need for a short-term rental ordinance. And the council approved adding Arkansas Fire Code language to the existing ordinance, which isn't a bad thing, but it also included a maximum occupancy requirement of 2 persons per bedroom, plus 2 additional that can sleep on the couch. I continue to espouse the thoughts of our friends at Hot Springs Village, that short-term rental laws are nothing more than another way to tax citizens and are unconstitutional. Of course, when the city was putting together their initial ordinance, the community club board of directors was putting together their own rules in the club bylaws. It was a game of who can control what and when. The city has now taken the stance that the club bylaws rules and covenants and restrictions do not apply to the city ordinance. So now we again have dueling governments in Fairfield Bay. It has been suggested that if the city continues on its course and becomes involved in a legal action with persons whose applications for short-term rentals have been denied, that the club would join the suit against the city. What a bowl of frosted bullcrap. So, citizens of the city, who are also members of the club, that's a good part of the city, will then pay the legal fees and our judgment for both the plaintiff and defendants? Dumb, dumb, dumb. Egos are running amok, and there doesn't appear to be an end in sight. But wait! There are both resort board of directors and city council elections coming up sooner than later. That being the case, please take time to participate in both elections. Take a look at what has been happening in the Bay and act to protect our Ozark way of life. You can help stop the hubris, backbiting, and cherry-pick quote-unquote facts. Your vote does count. I'll leave you with today's words of wisdom. I stayed up all last night, wondering where the sun went. Then it dawned on me. Please, no rim shots. Thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in today. This is the Fairfield Bay Gadfly, bringing you truth from above and signing off